Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face, my card making space, and video 2 for today for STAMPtember releases, because it is another twofer day where they're releasing 2 collaboration sets. And as of filming this intro, this is my second one. So the other one will be linked in the blog post that's linked below the video. It'll also just be on my YouTube channel, so definitely check it out. This video is for the My Favorite Things collaboration set. For those that aren't aware, during the month of September, Simon Says Stamp throws the biggest party ever, and it's called STAMPtember. They've partnered with tons of other crafty brands to do limited edition exclusive sets that are one and done. When they sell out, they are not restocked. However, all of these brands have tons of great products. This one being no exception. This is the My Favorite Things collaboration. The set is absolutely adorable, and there are many products to choose from in the My Favorite Things line. I will have a link to their line in the description box below the video, along with all my other links. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It's what helps pay the bills, keeps the channel going, all the things. That's all I got to say for the moment, so let's get into making this card. So this collaboration set is the Love, Joy, and Cookies stamp set. And I took all the images from the set and I am stamping them onto some Neenah Desert Storm 100-pound cardstock. And I'm using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, which is an alcohol marker friendly ink. So inked up the stamps, stamp them, and then I am going to color these in with my Olo markers. And I honestly, I can't remember at the moment if I've done this with Olos. I have colored on like Desert Storm or Craft cardstock with like my Copics. I think I've done it with the Spectrum Noir Trial blends. Really, it's all the same thing with alcohol markers. When you're coloring on anything other than white cardstock, and I've talked about this many times, the thing to always remember is because it's not white, your base isn't white, colors are obviously going to look different. And the biggest takeaway too is the very pale colors, because the nice thing with alcohol markers is we have like so many very light shades, you know, they're good for blending or just really pale colors, etc. will not only look very different, but in some ways they might not show up at all. So if you're unsure, definitely, you know, swatch things out, scribble it onto a scrap of cardstock, and then let it dry. Because while the marker is still wet on the cardstock, it's going to look very different than when the ink dries fully, which doesn't take very long because alcohol markers dry pretty quickly, but it's just something to keep in mind. So I just worked my way around coloring in everything. I had a nice little idea with the little fireplace here and kind of created like a glow, because I was like, well, there would be a glow around the flames. So I blended various yellows and oranges together along with a bit of warm grays around the perimeter of it. And it worked. I was really happy with how it turned out. And yeah, I was jumping all over the place with my coloring and ended up going traditional again. Who'd have thunk? Me, I don't normally do traditional Christmas colors. I usually like to really mix it up. And I was going to with this, and then it decided. The whole thing, it was like, no, these need to be just traditional colors. I've got my little fireplace and yeah, reds and greens. And it just, everything is so cute. So I'm fine with it. It's just funny for me. So I kept working my way around. And also, I should mention, just in case, because I know not everyone watches my videos, my Olo markers, these are half markers. They're meant to be like connected. You can either just connect 2 different colors, or you can have like one end a brush tip, one end a chisel tip. All I have are the brush nibs, and I haven't connected mine. I don't mind using them like this. I call them my little stublets, and it just works for me. I will eventually connect them. For now, this is what works. But I will link to my playlist at the end, in the end screen of this video. I have a playlist of all the videos I've done so far, you know, coloring with my Olos and like swatching them and all that kind of stuff. So I will have that linked in the end screen for anyone who wants to check it out. And yeah, like I say, you can do this with anything. Like we have many options now for alcohol markers, which is pretty sweet. So I colored in all my little characters, all their little cookies, all the things. And then of course the other thing to remember with coloring on anything other than white cardstock is your white areas are not white. So in this case, they are craft color. So you can't really do anything about that with the actual alcohol markers themselves. You need to bring in something else. So I just used a white color pencil. It's just a Prismacolor one, and colored in the areas that I wanted to be white with the color pencil. And for my little bunny, I very lightly, just with a light hand, went over him because bunnies turn white in the winter. So I didn't want him to be like just that light gray. So I just very lightly went over this just to give him more of a little bit of a white tinge. And then the little snowflake cookie, and then obviously the little Santa hat I colored in with the color pencil. And then I cut everything out, set that aside. And my background is also Desert Storm cardstock. And I pulled out one of my just go-to favorites. This is the Picket Fence Studios Brick and Mortar Stencil. It was kind of fitting with that little fireplace. So I stuck my background to my paper inking palette, stuck the stencil to it. And then I'm using one of Simon's Pawsitively saturated ink trios and a blending brush to create my background. And I'm going to layer all three colors. So I start with the lightest, and then I go to the medium, and then the darkest. And I'm using clay, terracotta, and brick. Kind of works. So just lightly blending this, kind of leaving some areas a little lighter, some a little darker to give a little bit of variation to the background. With the brick color, I'm going in very light-handed because this is a pretty intense color. And I don't want it like taking over all of the two lighter shades I'd added to this. So blended all that, and then of course we're going to add splatter. So I'm going to put this in my splat box, and again I'm going to use my Distress watercolor pencil palette. This I will also have linked in the end screen of the video. I did a video showing how I made this palette because I get a lot of questions when I pull this out. So I've got a video explaining everything, showing how I did it. And I've been using it a lot more lately just for splattering. I love it. So I put some water in one of the wells. This one was aged mahogany. Again, perfect for this. And swirled it up really good with my little fan brush. Added a good healthy dose of splatter to this background. I let that dry and cleaned off my brush. And then I'm going to add a little bit more splatter. This time I'm using my the Spellbinders Opaque splatter, the white opaque splatter. So I put a little bit of that onto my palette, thin it out with a little bit of water just to get it to the right consistency, and then just added a bit of this to the background as well. And then same thing, let that dry. And for my sentiment, I pulled out just a scrap of green cardstock, and I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool on this. And then I'm going to stamp one of the sentiments from that Love, Joy, and Cookies stamp set. I'm going to stamp it with some clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to coat this with some detail white embossing powder. Tap off the excess and then melt that with my heat tool. So once I've got the embossing powder coating the sentiment, I can melt that with my heat tool till it's smooth and melted. And then once that's melted, I let that cool off for, it only takes like a few seconds. And I use my microfiber cloth to wipe away all that excess anti-static powder. So get that removed. And then I'm going to use one of the Simon Says Stamp Sentiment Labels wafer dies. And yeah, I was fighting with the fruit flies, the little gnats. The whole time I was making this card, they were driving me nuts. You can see me sometimes like flailing around. They were literally driving me insane while I was making this. But anyway, I got the sentiment die cut, and then I trimmed the one end with my paper trimmer, and then I used my scissors to just cut right down the center there. And then you meet each corner with the end of that little cut to create a nice little flag end on the end of my sentiment. And then once I've got that, I need to stamp the inside of my card. So my card base is a top folding A2 white note card. And I'm going to stamp another sentiment from the stamp set, this time using the brick Pawsitively saturated ink. So one, make sure I got my sentiment straight, just like so. And then I'm going to stamp it with that brick ink onto the inside of my card. So get that stamped into place. And then to assemble my little card front, I am going to adhere all of the little elements with a combination of like thin foam squares and regular foam squares. So I've got different levels of dimension going on here. So adhered the fireplace and the sentiment with some thin foam squares. I'm going to flip this over, trim off that excess with my scissors, and then my little critters hanging out around the little fireplace, I'm going to also adhere with different foam squares. The ones on the bottom, I use regular foam squares, so they're popped up a little bit more. And then I put a piece of just heavyweight cardstock behind this panel, so it's going to bump it up a little bit, give it just a smidge of dimension, but not as bulky as using foam tape. So got that into place, adhered that to my card base, and then adhered my final little character onto the inside of the card. And then I pulled out my glossy accents, and I only added it to certain areas first, because these are where I want to add glitter, because I want to add the glossy accents, and then while it's still wet, I'm going to sprinkle some glitter over it, which will then stick to the glossy accents, and it'll give them some shimmer. So I only added glossy accents to like the little Santa hat, little dots on the garland, a little bit onto the flames, and a little headband on that little puppy dog. And then to add my glitter, I'm using my glitter duster. I haven't used this in forever. I did videos on this way back in the day. I forget when these came on the market, like a million years ago. But yeah, I've got this little glitter duster. It's by Stampers Anonymous. And inside it, I have some of Simon Says Stamps fine unicorn dust glitter. And yeah, you just lift up the nozzle like that, and then you just press it, and it just literally dusts glitter. So it's just a light amount. That's it. Simple. Super simple. So I tapped off the excess. I let that dry, and then I added glossy accents to all the other areas that I didn't want glitter on them. So that was the method to the madness. Because all the rest of this, I didn't want glitter on. Although these little cookies, I was like, oh, these would look really cute with like rock candy glitter, because rock candy distress glitter looks like sugar. And I was like, that would work. But I didn't want to cover up all the coloring I did. So instead, I just coated everything with the glossy accents, let that completely dry. And then once it was dry, I can go right over the glossy accents with my white gel pen. I've talked about this a lot, especially in recent videos. You want to make sure you do gel pen last, in my opinion, because more often than not, the glossy accents, or if you're using like shimmer pens, things like that, they'll dissolve the gel pen. It just depends, but I just find it's just easier to add the gel pen afterwards. So I'd let everything dry, and then I used my gel pen to add little dots and highlights and all the things to everything. And then, yeah, went over the glossy accents on the cookies with my gel pen to add little details and whatnot. And that's another reason why I like coloring on craft cardstock, is it makes the white gel pen highlights just pop, way more intense, and that's fun. I need to do this more often. I like coloring on craft. So anyway, finished it off, did the same thing to my little character on the inside, added the little gel pen highlights, and that completed this card. So like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have links to all of the things in the description box below the video. So if you just expand the description box, everything will be there. It'll be listed, linked, all the info. For anyone who's interested, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me today, for taking the time to watch this, thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. I very much appreciate all of you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.